Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another ITY video. Today I have with me Geoff Neate. He is the CEO of Spirit Telecom. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm just recording over Skype and I'm outside, a little bit of noise, but look, it should be fine. I've got everything on maximum volume. But look, I thought I'd ask you, normally I ask people to just tell us about the company they're representing. So, tell us about Spirit Telecom and tell us what it's doing in 2016 in a nutshell, because we'll talk more about what you're doing as we progress. And then a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, Spirit, we started in 2005, so we've been travelling now for 11 years and evolved, obviously, over that period of time. We started off as a rebuilder. We've gone through a couple of acquisitions over the time, and we became a network provider with a layer 2 network. And now we're in a space where we've just recently listed on the ASX, so our code is ST1, Spirit Telecom Limited now. So we've evolved from a startup to a small telco, but now migrating across to a publicly listed entity, which has been quite rewarding, which is good. And now what we do is we concentrate on putting high-speed internet into multi-dwelling units, be it commercial or residential, and that's our key focus at the moment, out there providing what some say is the fastest internet in Australia.
Well, and I mean, of course, that's a very topical thing, but before we get on to that, I mean, you're CEO of a telecommunications company, growing, offering, as you say, incredibly fast internet, and what's it been like over this time? I know you've sort of alluded to that, but are there any other career highlights you'd like to share through your own journey to where you are today?
At a personal level, I have to say listing is probably one of the highlights. Prior to Spirit, I was General Manager of Primus in the consumer division there when Primus was growing quite significantly, so I was pretty happy with the performance there. And I've been in companies like RACD, Lend-Lease, Telstra many years ago, so I've travelled along, but I'd say this would have to be, getting the company to be a publicly listed entity and recognised on the ASX would have to be number one. That'd be right up there.
So what is the technology that you're using to deliver this super fast internet for those who don't, are unaware?
Yeah. Well, we refer to it as switched Ethernet. In residential buildings, we put fibre up the risers. We have a layer 2 network, so we use fibre going from our POP into the building, essentially as an extension cord from our network into a given building. Run switches every 3 floors and then out into the apartment. So the consistency level is, the penthouse will get as fast as the basement, which isn't always the way with other deployments that other companies are using.
Sure. I mean, I'm imagining that's fibre to the basement, which is just copper wires. Wires to the top. And if you're on the top of the penthouse, you've got the longest bit of cable. So you sort of, it's like your distance from the exchange problem, but vertically in the sky.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. So copper loses speed over distance, by running fibre up the rise, of course, you maintain that because it goes through essentially pulses of light rather than across the copper wire. Sure.
And so, what sort of connection speeds are you getting? And there must be different buildings. I guess it depends on the technology you're using and the size of the building. But what are the typical speeds you're getting, and what's the fastest speed you're getting?
Well, in essence, we actually have to slow the speeds down because we put over a gig into buildings. I think our record was in a Melbourne building, 7 Yarra Street. I think we got 1 millisecond ping and about 750 bandwidth up and down, which we were pretty happy with. And that was in the middle of the day at 4 o'clock when usage would have been quite high.
Well, kids would have been home from school, and that's double your previous record of 400 meg up and down, right? Nearly double.
Well, 400 is the highest plan that we offer. So that's what I mean. We have to actually slow the internet down for the market through our radius servers and the networks and so forth. We actually we shape it down to a packageable or a retailable product offering.
Sure, absolutely. And also just, it's super fast speeds anyway, 400 megabits. Not too many of the people getting that. So, and when the need for upgrade to 1 or 2 gigabit services like they have in like Japan or something arises, well, you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's the most important thing is we've got a scalable network. So yes, we can scale I think well above 2 gig.
Sure. And look, I mean, I read that you've done over 50 commercial and residential buildings. So, I mean, tell us some of the stories around that. What were and that was just in the first half of this year. So you've obviously been very busy. But what were the typical problems? What were the common things that were good, the things that were the bad, and the how you solved it all?
Yeah, of course, we've got over 200 buildings now, and pretty much every building is reasonably unique. So you learn with every deployment.
Sure.
One of our earliest buildings is Freshwater Place in just on South Bank there, next door to Eureka. And look, that's been a sensational building for us because we've been able to deploy a very fast speed. We've got a OC, an owners corporation that are very encouraging, and they want to keep upscaling their building.
Yeah.
They want to make sure they've got the fastest deployment. So we work hand in hand with them to make sure that we make them one of the fastest buildings in Australia. Otherwise, you've got the challenges that everyone else has. You've got to meet the requirements and the demands of the end customer, but in the interim there, you've got your building managers that you need to work with, you've got your owners corporations that you need to work with, and you've got your facility managers in corporate buildings that you need to work with. So it really is about making sure that you're accessible to the end customers and all those that are stakeholders in a given building. And when you have 200 buildings or over 200 buildings, you've got a lot of stakeholders that you have to accommodate.
Indeed, and you were talking about that waterfront or the very first building, contacting you to keep on upgrading the infrastructure and for faster speeds. I mean, and that's an obvious way that a building, which, aside from, different levels of design, is a building, and if it's got one class of internet, it's got one value. But if you suddenly add super fast internet to it, it's like moving to a place that's got the NBN. Effectively, it's the same sort of deal, and that must be keeping the property owners happy too.
Yeah, there's research coming out of the UK that says super fast internet or excellent internet, we'll say, increases property value. That's coming out of the UK, and that people are buying properties or renting properties based on the ability to get good internet. We experience that. We have people emailing us, asking us or contacting us, asking what buildings they're in, or they're down to 3 buildings, or they're down to 5 buildings. Which one are we in? That's the one they're going to go to. Mm-hmm. Then you have, of course, the buildings like Freshwater Place and Triptych and so forth that you want to make sure that they're the latest and greatest because they use that as a selling point. And one of the biggest complaints in hotels in America is poor internet. So you have the hotels like Punt Hill Apartments, which are all of the Punt Hill group around Australia, and they say that they sell the benefits of being able to provide the end user their customer with super fast internet. So it's becoming more and more commonplace. What I often say, what we do is to ADSL what ADSL was to dial up when I was at Prime Estate. Yeah. So that's the sort of difference that we're playing at the moment.
And look, people want an experience in a hotel or or some sort of business centre to be better than what they've got at home. They want to be able to use Netflix and experience Netflix and actually, hey, I can get 4K Netflix in this hotel or wherever I am because the network can do it,
Yes.
I mean, people want to be able to feel that connection to their digital world, and super fast speed is one heck of a way to, make a real noticeable difference to the quality of your experience.
That's right, and it does add value to the end user's experience because you've got conferences and the like where people flood out at morning tea or lunchtime and hit the internet, and that requires better than people have been used to in the past. So it's very important to get those quality speeds into these buildings so that the can meet the demands of the target customer that these commercial and residential buildings have.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your views on the NBN? I mean, in effect, you're competing with the NBN to wire up buildings, competing with the TPGs of the world who had their, the famous court cases. So, I guess over to you. What's your view on all that?
Look, the NBN's a great concept, but it's a mass market product. We're not mass market. We don't plan to accommodate. We'll be a rounding error in market share. So we're not necessarily aiming to be a mass market player.
Sure.
And that's
Unfortunately, you can't ring Spirit yet and say, please come and connect my house.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. But even at when you can,
yeah.
or as you can, and there are some single dwellings that we do,
sure.
It's going to be more expensive in that aspect than the NBN, I'd say, but it'd also be a much better experience,
That's right.
much higher quality and better internet experience.
Actually, just before we get on to the rest of your thoughts on the NBN, sorry, but just what's the average price? I'm sure it's on your website, but what's your most popular plan, or what's an unlimited plan?
All of our plans are unlimited. The plans, for 100 meg service, it's $90 a month.
Yeah.
But at a residential level, at a single dwelling unit, we do that via radio. We go off one roof to another, which we do in some multi-dwelling units, and that would mean you'd have a capital outlay up front. So the price might vary at that point in time. It might be the same ongoing monthly, but
sure.
you've got a bigger up front.
I mean, taking into account you do have to install the service, but I mean, whether it's the fibre to the node, fibre to the basement, which is using copper wire cables. I mean, if you can get the technology installed earlier rather than having to wait, there's all those obvious benefits. But $90 a month for 100 megabits, that's pretty good, unlimited. So and there's faster plans after that.
We know how the NBN is rolling out, so there's going to be a market there for us for a few years to come.
Years to come. So anything else you'd like to say about the NBN and then also the ACCC also had a recent determination too?
Well, with regard to the NBN, look, so long as they're doing the multi-technology mix, there'll always be a market for us. That's basically all I need to say on that. They're looking at an average of 25 meg.
Yeah.
I could tell you now, I have 2 children, my wife and I, and 2 kids, and we couldn't survive on 25 meg at home. There's absolutely no way. There's 8 devices going off at any one time, and I wouldn't necessarily consider us big users, but TVs, iPads, still doing work. Kids are streaming, kids are playing FIFA, etc., etc. So the average of 25 meg by 2020, I don't see that as being enough for the average family.
I thought 640k was going to be enough for everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
25 meg ought to be enough for everybody too, but no.
No, that's right. So, your next bit of the SPA, the Superfast broadband access determination. The ACCC have come out and started to talk about regulating or applying some regulations to the telcos. There's still a lot of work to be done on that, I believe, and there's still inquiries going on around that space. But we believe we're in a very good space. I've sat down with Malcolm Turnbull when he was Minister for Communications. I've sat down with the Department of Communications. I've sat down with the ACCC. I've sat down with ACMA. But they see our model as rather unique. For the purpose of what they've recently released, we have an exemption whilst they pursue a further inquiry, and we'll see where that ends up. I think that at the end of the day, probably the most likely scenario is we'll end up wholesaling, which I really don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
As well as retailing, I should point out, we'll end up wholesaling as well as retailing.
Sure. No, I mean, if you're forced to do that, you'll just do it and continue on, and otherwise, I mean, you'll still have your own retail home anyway. So it's all
that's
good.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were famously part of one of the series of The Block. Tell us just briefly what that was like and the speeds in that building. And I've been part of reality TV with Room for Improvement, where I was one of the hosts talking about helping putting in all the technologies. This was on Channel 7. I mean, I think they still play the show at, they seem to have done it for 12 years at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because it's Australian content, So it's just, anyway, it was a great show. And The Block obviously is the modern version of that, and it's even more digitally connected. So what was the whole thing like?
It was good. Yeah. We've done 3 blocks, or the last 3.
Yeah.
The current one we're not doing, but it started off. It was actually my wife's idea. She said we should be doing The Block, and I thought, of course we should. And
I
made contact with them, and within 5 minutes, I had Julian Kress, the executive producer, on the phone saying, "Can you do it? We're starting filming next week." And I said, "Well, we'll give it a shot." And we installed Superfast internet into the first one. He said, "That was sensational. Can we do the second one?" And then, of course, we did the third one, which was finished 24th of November, I think it was last year. And they did a story about how we do it and how we made the block, arguably the fastest residential building in Australia, and which was sensational, and the interest
level spiked
through the roof.
Yeah.
So much so that
your marketing department
Telecom have gone and sponsored the show, so blocked us out.
Who did that? Who was it? Sorry.
Telstra sponsoring. We obviously made it worthwhile.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, you can be very proud, and I mean, I'm just saying, you know, I was just thinking the guy in the background could be your marketing department, happy at all the inquiries, not just a happy Spirit user.
It's all about the experience, and he's blown away. So
that's it. So, a lot of people talk about wireless being the future, but of course, to deliver wireless, you need to have cables to those antennas, broadcasting a signal, and those cables are going to be fiber, or your technology, or what is to come. So, what are your thoughts on wireless broadband, wired and wireless broadband over the next 10 years or so? I mean, we should have the NBN Mark 1 well and truly finished, and already into the Mark 2 obligatory upgrade, because we didn't do it right the first time round.
That's your comment. I'll just leave that one. But look, the technologies, the ability to send data across long distances is just improving. I read articles recently that are testing in the States. They've got up to 300 kilometres from point to point through radio communications. And when you think about it, TV in Australia was launched in 1957, and that was all via signals in the air. So it's not such an old technology. It's just the demand now has meant that companies are starting to really work on being able to transfer a lot of data at a much faster rate over a much greater distance, and that's excellent for us. Yes.
So look, as I get to the second last question of the interview, I'm always inspired by, there was a talk that Ashton Kutcher gave at a Lenovo event a couple of years ago, and he was talking about how a good question to ask people was, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received that's helped you get where you are today? So now, it's my second last question I always ask.
I don't mind the odd quote. I did an interview, so I always use quotes. I did an interview in university days of Peter Rowland from Peter Rowland Catering, and I remember interviewing him. I've forgotten exactly what the topic of the interview was, but it was around the time that there was the Bond wedding in WA, and it was an elaborate wedding, and it made all the celebrity pages. And I asked him about it, and he said it just went in with the mantra that nothing is impossible, it only costs more. So that's a fairly good bit of advice.
That's right.
The other one is, I'm not exactly sure where I picked this one up from, but it's think big, start small, scale, fail fast. That's pretty much.
Say that one again slowly.
I'm sorry.
Say that one again slowly. Think big.
Think big, start small, scale, or fail fast.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. I mean, they say don't wait for perfection. You just got to start, and you'll polish it on the fly, just as like you're describing. So, do you have any final messages for our viewers and readers, and for your current and future customers?
Look, I would say look out for Spirit. We're expanding pretty quickly and working our way up the eastern seaboard. And I think that if we come into a building near you, I'd jump onto it, because it's all about the experience of Spirit Superfast Internet. We hope to be rolling out in a building near you.
Yeah. I was just thinking of an alternate tagline for Spirit. You could call it high strength.
Internet's future, power of more is one we're using at the moment, but internet's future.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Geoff Neate, CEO of Spirit Telecoms, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope to learn more from you and talk to you again in the future.
Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate it.
Thank you.